What if your next computer was actually alive? Welcome to The Explainer. We are standing at the absolute edge of a wildly new frontier right now, a place where raw, living biology is quite literally colliding with high-tech engineering. Seriously, think about this. What if the skin on your arm could learn how to play video games? I know it sounds totally impossible, like straight-up sci-fi, right? But hold on to that thought, because today we're exploring how scientists are taking ordinary human cells, literally scraping them from a living person, and transforming them into actual, functioning neural networks. Metaphorically speaking, they aren't just building computers anymore, they're growing them. Section 1. Living Brains on Chips. So inside these microscopic brain organoids, which honestly look kind of like opaque, snot-colored blobs about the size of a chia seed, researchers are packing in roughly 5 million cells. And about 2.5 million of those, they're active neurons. To put that into perspective for you, that essentially gives this tiny little speck of lab-grown tissue the computing power of a bee's brain. Literally, a bee's brain on a chip. Okay, this is where it gets incredibly cinematic. When these human brain organoids are kept in womb-like conditions, we're talking precisely 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit for about 8 months, something unbelievable happens. These lab-grown neurons just spontaneously connect. They start humming with electrical life. They actually produce these repetitive oscillations and brainwaves that are almost entirely indistinguishable from a premature baby's. This isn't just inert matter, guys. It's living tissue, pulsing to the exact rhythm of a newborn, right there in a petri dish. Section 2. How to grow a mind. So the crazy part is how accessible and non-invasive this whole process is. Step 1. Just to harvest some everyday adult cells. We're talking skin, blood, hair, even teeth. Next, scientists hit those cells with a specific cocktail of proteins. This essentially hits the rewind button on their biological clock, reverting them back into an embryonic state known as induced pluripotent stem cells. From there, it's like a blank canvas. They can be guided to grow into almost anything: tear glands that actually cry, hearts that physically beat, or, in our case, brain organoids that wire themselves together to compute.
And you know, this science gets incredibly personal. Take Dr. Allison Moutry at UC San Diego, for example. He's growing these organoids by the tens of thousands. His 18-year-old son has autism and requires round-the-clock care. By using this exact non-invasive process to grow brain organoids from autistic donors, including his own son, Dr. Moutry can literally watch human neural development unfold in real time under a microscope. He's hunting for the exact moment, the exact point, where that neural development diverges.
Moving on to the biocomputer revolution.
Let's see how all this lab science builds into a massive, entirely new industry. Down in Melbourne, there's this startup called Cortical Labs, and they are building the hardware to house these living neural grids. They call them CL1 biological computers. Just picture this: sleek, white units that kind of look like elongated toasters. But inside, they have these complex life support systems actively keeping up to 1 million human neurons alive and computing for up to 6 months at a time. It's just a stunning mental image: raw, living biology operating deep inside pristine commercial tech.
And what exactly are these neurons doing all day? Well, the team, led by Brett Kagan, took a tiny culture of these living neurons and placed them onto a 59-electrode grid. Then, get this, they trained it to play the 1972 Atari classic Pong. And actually, recently, they've even leveled up to Doom. But how do you train living matter? You basically hack biology. The neurons were rewarded for correct moves with predictable electrical pulses and punished for mistakes with chaotic, noisy bursts. Since biological systems naturally want to minimize surprise and chaos, the neurons literally rewired themselves. They learned the game just to avoid the chaotic noise. Wild, right?
Section 4. Beyond Artificial Intelligence. Let's dive right into how this stacks up against standard AI, because the differences are frankly staggering. Traditional artificial intelligence, built on rare earth minerals and silicon, it requires enormous financial and energy costs. It's a rigid, inflexible substrate that completely relies on top-down modeling. But Organoid Intelligence, Wetware, biology, it gives you these incredible features completely for free. It boasts a remarkably low energy draw, it's totally self-repairing, and, as we just saw with that Pong experiment, it is highly organically adaptable in real time.
Plus, there is some absolutely brutal math driving massive funding into this space right now, especially from the pharmaceutical industry. According to toxicologist Thomas Hartung over at Johns Hopkins, 95% of neuropsychiatric drugs, think treatments for depression or Alzheimer's, fail in human trials. 95%. Why? Well, historically, we've tested on animals, and their brains just aren't physiologically relevant enough to ours. Organoids finally offer a direct human tissue testing model, and that is drawing millions and millions of dollars to figure out how to scale this technology up.
But of course, scaling up comes with physical limits. Right now, the size ceiling for an organoid is about 5 millimeters. Because they don't have a vascular system, no blood vessels to pump oxygen in and get waste out, anything larger just begins to suffocate. That develops a dead necrotic core. Nasty stuff. However, researchers are aggressively attacking this bottleneck. At Johns Hopkins, nanotechnologists are literally building biomimetic artificial arteries to flow nutrients through the tissue. Their goal? Pushing these biological computers up to the size of a mouse brain.
Which brings us to the ethics of wetware. Because this science gets incredibly visceral very fast. Back in 2017, science journalist Philip Ball actually had skin cells taken from his own arm and grown into a brain organoid. 8 months later, he's looking through a microscope at his own flesh. It's separated from his body, yet pulsing with the exact same electrical signals that animate his own mind. He described feeling this deep, unsettling frisson. And you can see why. It profoundly blurs the line. Is it a living person, or is it just a biological thing?
This massive muddying of the waters leads us directly to the bioethicists. Sociologist John Evans at UCSD poses a really fascinating question here. He points out that you could argue sentience is impossible without a body, without a sensory experience of the real world. As he puts it, if you'd spent your whole existence in a glass tube, could you even conceive of consciousness? I mean, think about it. Can tissue floating in a dish be aware if it has literally never felt, seen, or touched the environment around it?
And that brings us to a pretty severe philosophical warning famously articulated by sci-fi author Ted Chiang. He noted that suffering precedes moral agency on the developmental ladder. The warning here is profound, guys. If humanity continues to standardize biological intelligence, if we keep building conscious biological agents, we might inadvertently create billions of isolated entities that are capable of experiencing suffering long before they ever achieve anything like moral agency.
The cells in our bodies have this fundamental built-in drive to reach out, to connect, and to process the world. And we're now capturing that drive and plugging it directly into our technology. Which leaves us with this final, totally mind-bending thought. As the hardware interfaces improve and our biological computers become truly alive, where exactly will we draw the line between a machine and a mind?
It's a question that is absolutely going to shape the next era of human innovation. If you found this breakdown of organoid intelligence fascinating, please drop your take below in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more explainers, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.